Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, Susan Morales, and this channel focuses on learning how to follow Jesus in an everyday kind of way. It's been a little while since I last posted a video here. Life's been a little busy, but here I am, something passionate in my heart, ready to discuss it with you. It's politics season, election season, and there's a lot of talk always, especially around this time, relating to immigration. Elon Musk just recently went to the border, did like a live stream there, and he showed, the side of how hard things are there. And you could check that out on X, formerly known as Twitter. But I don't know about your social media, what your algorithm shows you, but mine has been showing me a lot about illegal immigration. So I hear a lot of people talking about illegals, and the leading Republican that want to become the nominee to run for president, a lot of them are taking I call it an extreme stance on immigration. I don't remember this being said in other election years, but maybe I just wasn't aware. But for sure I hear it a lot this time around. So the thing that they're putting out there is that they want to change the laws so that illegal immigrants' children cannot become American citizens. So they want to take away their birthrights, arguing that, hey, that's not really what was meant in our laws. And so that's a debate. And I feel like this is a worthwhile video to make because based off of my own algorithm, as someone that has always voted Republican, so that's the kind of content I'm looking at on YouTube, on Twitter, on X. I don't really see a lot of Republicans that are, people that became citizens because, through the process of their parents having come here illegally and having, having met the requirements to become legal citizens. And so I want to put this out there because I think it's important as Christians to look at politics in a realistic way. Christianity is all about providing, the best, defending the truth, defending what reality is. And the same motivation should be when it comes to us evaluating political decisions. We will have to make those decisions coming up, voting for who we would like to run as president. And I just want to make this video despite the fact that I think people will leave me comments telling me that they strongly disagree with me, hoping I don't get harsh comments because it is such a personal topic that I'm opening up about, and I know a lot of people don't open up about it because they don't want to receive all of that. So yeah, I think it's important as someone that identifies as a Republican and yet is the result of, my citizenship is the result of, it has roots in illegal immigration. So I think I just want to share a little bit about my background, and then I want to discuss some arguments in favor of illegal immigration, while at the same time giving you some surprising personal experiences that I have with former illegal immigrants that actually sound very much like the people that want to get rid of the rights, of birthright. So I think I'll surprise you towards the end of this video with the reality of how actually some former illegal immigrants think politically on this very topic. It's not like the stereotype that's out there about if you're Hispanic, you automatically become a Democrat and that kind of thing. So I think this is my first time sharing this story, and I don't want to give too many details because it's not completely my own story, but it's the story of my family as well, so I'm going to try to navigate that. So I pretty much was born in the 80s, late 80s, and so you know more than me probably about who was the president at that time of the United States, what were the laws going on. Immigration laws fluctuate depending on who's leading the country, who the political climate, what Americans believe, and so at that time, one of my parents chose to come to this country to pursue a better life, and came on an airplane, stayed longer than the visa permitted, and then my other parent came in a similar way, wanting to keep the family together. At the time, there was one child, a very young child, that came, and the same situation became I don't know if you would call them residents. They chose to leave their family in pursuit of staying together as a family in this country, pursuing a new life in this country. I was born in this country, and as a result of that law that gives the babies born into this country, the legal citizens status, that's how I am a U.S. citizen. So that, to me, when people talk about taking that right away from babies, it automatically goes to me. Like, I identify with those babies, and I think, and I'm not the only one, as I've discussed this with someone else that is the same similar situation, different stories, different countries. That person also said, oh, me, like they're talking about taking away rights, so that would be me, like that I wouldn't be able to become a U.S. citizen. I wouldn't be a U.S. citizen here today if that was the law at the time. So that comes across a little bit like, oh, you don't want us. You don't want people like us in this country. And I want to talk about that more towards the end, but let me just continue my story here. And as always, you know that in the mornings my voice is like this, so I'm holding on to you with one hand, and I'm gonna get some water, or else we're not gonna talk anymore. That should help in a little bit. So, I'm sorry I don't have time to edit these videos anymore, so not right now. So I was born here, and I want to share the realities of being illegal immigrants. It's not as it wasn't, and I lean more towards like thinking that the way that illegal immigrants today are in this country, I lean more towards that their experience isn't that great either, even though maybe the programs are different now and opportunities are different, conditions might be different, but it's still going to be a hard experience being here without legal documentation. So fully aware that my situation was different from other years, other presidents, other political seasons. I'm gonna talk about mine. We lived in a very poor condition, and this is a very common story for people that can relate to my upbringing. Our apartment, we lived in an apartment that was not in the greatest neighborhood. It was not clean, and there were rodents, there were, cockroaches. We didn't have furniture. My parents got a few wheels from the streets, and they found a mattress, and that was where we slept. Thankfully, my parents were able to somehow join a church. They came from Catholic families because they both were from Mexico, and they came here and they became Protestant Christians. And the pastor, who was also Hispanic, that church was a lot of different Hispanic people from different, Spanish-speaking countries. That pastor helped my baby years. He provided a crib and like clothes, baby clothes, and so I don't know what else, but it wasn't a good situation for us. And the way I see it is, my parents and other illegal immigrants must be very desperate to be willing to go through that experience, to be willing to leave the comforts of being helped by family, by, just not having to be, I guess, dodging deportation, and willing to start a new life from scraps in this new country. So we moved to another city, also not the greatest conditions, a lot of Hispanics, probably same situation, a lot of illegal immigrant parents. The schools overpopulated, not the greatest education. Thankfully there were some programs where if you were a little advanced, they would put you in gifted classes. So I benefited from that. My experience was day and night different, though, compared to my sibling that was not a citizen and maybe struggled a little more with the language, because there's that too. You're coming to this country and you're not fluent in the language, and that includes the little children. And so that's a setback in education. I remember being in school and there were a lot of little kids in my classes where they had those programs for children that mostly speak Spanish, and so they had to have extra help learning the English language. So we lived next to a church, our church. That first church moved location, so we were able to live right next door. And my dad was able to have a job as the church janitor. And we helped. That was a nice way for us to grow up. They had this large driveway and a playground. I guess it was the parking lot, but it had basketball courts and it was huge, at least in my little child memories. I remember it being large and we can ride our bikes there while my dad, tended to the church, and it had a gate so it was secure. But to this day, I have like nightmares, bad memories, just that feeling of it being a dangerous place to live. You could just feel that it was dangerous and you don't want to be outdoors in the nighttime. Like when sometimes we would have weekly services, so we were going to church Sunday in the morning and in the afternoon, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I believe, in the evenings. So on the evening services, it was kind of creepy having to turn off the lights at church with my dad and come around the fence to our apartment. I still have feelings about that as a child. So there's that element also of you grow up in a very poor and dangerous neighborhoods. You're just always thinking, I gotta be smarter than the danger around. I would see sometimes graffiti happening on the same wall, on the same, across the street, and just always being aware, hey, we live a few blocks away from Compton, and supposedly it's very dangerous over there. So one time I asked a friend that when I was in high school, I asked her, hey, you lived in Compton, right? So were you guys afraid of anyone? And she looked at me and she's like, yeah, we were afraid of you guys. So there I was living in a city that was right next to Compton, and we were afraid of the people in Compton, and she's over here telling me, well, we were afraid of you guys, of your city. So I think there's a lot of anxiety in the experience of illegal immigrants. A lot of, I hope we don't get pulled over. So my parent drove, and there were no laws that provided immigrants the right to have an identification, because illegal immigrants are not necessarily trying to do things illegally in the day-to-day life. If there was an opportunity, of course, my parent would have gone and had that. So there was always that that awareness of, we need to drive carefully. You guys need to sit still in the car, be very still when there's a police officer that's driving by. We were always scared. And in the back of our mind, probably everyone was hoping that whatever the laws were, that wouldn't happen to us, whether it be deported or separated as a family. I don't know. We couldn't, at least me as a little girl, I couldn't think that far ahead. But there was that anxiety and just an awareness of situations, for example, going bowling and them asking for a valid license and just being declined here and there, as simple as going bowling, and just having to face that, like, we can't because, So, my dad doing work as an electrician, he had a good job in Mexico, but he decided to come work over here. And you know how it is when people want to take advantage of cheap labor, so maybe sometimes they take advantage of that and they don't pay a fair amount. So, yeah. My experience growing up was waiting for my dad to pick us up. It all depended on when he was done with his work. My mom sometimes went to help him, and so I was always like waiting for my dad to pick us up. Sometimes I just felt, like danger all the time. They told me, like if we take too long, you go back into the school's office and you wait there, across the street, because I would wait sometimes across the street. And then, so if it was getting late, I would go back, and just little things like that. I felt like I was always kind of on edge, always having to protect myself, look out. And, so we moved from from that apartment in that dangerous neighborhood. Eventually someone motivated us to get out of there, because that's where they heard that people get shot and die visiting that city. So we ended up moving to a better city, and life was different. The school where I went to, for the first time, there was a lot of diversity there, because where I grew up, it was mostly Hispanics and Blacks. So now I went through like a culture shock, and just realizing that now I lived in one of those cities where I thought those people probably were like conceited because they lived in a nice city, and now I'm like, oh, I live in a nice city, even though I live in a apartment complex in that nice city. But the school environment, it was a small school. It was, the students and the teachers were different. It wasn't so crowded at all. I mean, my first school was 3 stories, kind of a school. This was like just one story, like little buildings here and there. And I was like, oh wow, here in the school, I don't have to feel like because I didn't want to be like a nerd, I didn't want to get picked on in my other school. But now over here, the kids were talking about schoolwork, and so it was a different thing. It's like, okay, now I can be a good student, like, and that's just the school culture here, So finally graduated high school, and I was able to get my driver's license thanks to someone. We ended up going to a church that was right across the street from our new apartment, and that was a very diverse church, different places. But now it wasn't just Spanish speaking places, it was like Asians, it was it was white, it was from everywhere. And one of them, a lady there, we were able to ask her if she would let me borrow her car for my driving test and if she would come with me. And she did, and I was able to get my driver's license thanks to her. Finally, I'm like, yes, I can drive my family. It's legal, and I don't have to worry about us having the consequences of getting pulled over. I felt a sense of responsibility for my family, you know? So there was a time when I would drive my sibling to work because that sibling didn't feel right about getting a fake driver's license. So that sibling did the best that they could to live in this country and follow their conscience. And so that was part of my experience a little bit as well. Eventually I reached the age of 21, and through the help of someone else, I was able to fill out the paperwork for my parents. And with the help of the other person, they were able to like co-sign with me and, you know, pretty much taking responsibility for them if anything happened, like financially. Because I wasn't in a position, I didn't have a good job or anything like that. I was just still, I think, in college, and I had a part-time in a daycare, so I needed someone else to co-sign. The way that it happened, and I think God helped us, and that's why I think that people that say that illegal immigrants are not Christians because they're breaking the laws, I don't think it's that black and white, because God did help us to become legal citizens. I was in college, and at the time I was looking to start a band so that we can, a worship team, a worship team for a Spanish ministry that my mom was starting at that church that we were at. And so I put a flyer, and one person responded, and him and his friend ended up coming and playing with us a few, I don't know, months maybe. And come to find out, that person is someone that works to help illegal immigrants become legal citizens. And it was through him that we were able to get all of that done for free. So I wish I was still in contact with that person, but they stopped playing at the church, and so we are forever grateful to him, his kindness, his generosity. And so my parents went and to the place eventually where you leave your Mexican citizenship behind and you embrace becoming American citizens. And now I want to talk a little bit about how complicated it is, because there are some former illegal immigrants that side with Republicans, and they're right. You don't want all of the illegal immigrants to come, because then they're gonna bring their some bad stuff and kind of mess up the country over here. And to me it's like, you are one of those people. Why are you I don't get it, you know? So I think a lot of former illegal immigrants are like, but we're different, you know? We're not over here trying to, we're not doing crimes. We're trying to assimilate. We're trying to blend in with the American culture here. But there are other illegal immigrants that are not, and they're turning it into like just like not the nice things of Mexico. So there's that side, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's okay for me to share this. Both of my parents vote, I think they vote Republican. And I want to share that because there's a lot of criticism and a lot of fear of illegal immigrants becoming US citizens. But at the same time, a lot of them are going to become Republicans, contrary to what's out there, the belief that they all become Democrats. That's not true. In the same way that Black people don't automatically become Democrats just because they're Black, Hispanics don't become Democrats just because they're Hispanics or just because they came illegally. They have minds of their own, and they're gonna vote however they see things, however they believe, whatever their worldview is. So I want to shut that down, that belief that illegal immigrants automatically will help the Democrats. That's not true. You can get a bunch of illegal immigrants to come here and they still won't vote for you. Another thing, what else did I want to talk about? I guess just what it's like for me having shared that story with you. What it's like for me though, as a second generation, life was hard. Like for me, like going to college and being the first in my family to graduate from college. You have to be like a trailblazer, right? You have to figure things out on your own because there's only so much that your parents are aware of. So that's kind of my story. Just always, just always like figuring things out. And, from a disadvantage, I had to work and it was very difficult. I would have done so much better in college had I not had to work, and the programs that they gave poor people like me, that came from poor households, the government's help, it wasn't that great of a help because you had to meet a certain amount of hours in college, and that wasn't helpful for me because I had to work, and I would have preferred to been part-time at college so that I could really get good grades and be able to study, have time to study while I was working, and all of that. The money only went so far. I did want to talk a little bit about the programs, for example, that they say that illegal immigrants are taking away, are benefiting from taxpayers' money. Growing up, because I was a US citizen, I was able to benefit from programs that gave us medical insurance, me and my little sibling, who was born after me. We were able to go to a doctor as often as we needed. Don't think we ever went to like the emergency room. Like our parents, weren't a problem and like for hospitals and things like that. They hardly ever went. I don't think they ever went to an ER, like, except when it was like a severe situation with my dad and I was in high school and he needed an operation. My older sibling didn't have the benefits of that and never went to appointments, to doctor appointments. So I think sometimes she would just end up getting some of our medicine because, the siblings usually get the same sickness, right? But that's that sibling situation. It was much rougher for that sibling, and it was a much harder situation for that sibling, like graduating high school and not having at the time opportunities to pursue college. So that experience was much harder, looking for jobs and navigating, your conscience at such a young age and all of that. My parents had the benefits because of me and my younger sibling. we were able to receive food stamps, and that's how we were able to eat. We had free food at school, and but it was like we weren't overweight, it was just enough to live on, and we were still very poor. We were not taking advantage of our country. My dad was working really hard to earn money. He wasn't just on the street asking for money. He worked to get what he could to provide for his family. And yeah, when I hear Republicans talking about taking those rights, I think, okay, so what does that say about me? What do you think about me? You think that I shouldn't be a U.S. citizen then? I'm like a visual example of what a child born in this country from illegal immigrants. I'm a visual of what the result can be. Same way that legal citizens' kids don't grow up to be the perfect, citizen. Same thing can be true about illegal immigrant parents. Their kids, not all of them are gonna be, the perfect citizen. But yeah, we don't want to demonize them either. Demonize people like me, those babies that they're trying to take away their rights. What am I doing? I have a American flag outside of my house. I was able, thankfully, with the help of my husband's parents, we were able to move into a house in a nice neighborhood. In our 20s, I think in our 20s, late 20s or early 30s. No, definitely in our 20s. We've lived here 10 years, never had, we're not criminals. My husband has a nice job at Boeing. He is also the result of being a U.S. citizen because he was born here. He benefits, our country benefits from his intelligence, his ethics, work ethics, and he is doing good things for our country, doing good things for our community, for our city. He is an asset. You need people like him and like me to raise up good children to be a part of this community, to be a part of this country. I coach soccer. It's a commitment. I probably don't have the time to do it, but I do it. I give it my all. I'm a part of this community, It's important for kids to have programs like that. I homeschool my children, so my kids are not like added weight to our public schools. I'm a safe driver. What else can I say? Like, I'm a pretty average person here. And I think that people should have the opportunity of being like me in this country, that it's not about how you start, but it's about how you finish. And if you come into this country illegally, and I'm not saying that everyone should be allowed to stay here and even to enter, but if there is that situation where you did come in here in a safe way, then you should be able to, you should have the chance of being here and becoming a U.S. citizen. At least like I did. My parents were able to wait all those years and be law-abiding citizens, never arrested, always following the laws, not causing any trouble, paying taxes, right? Every single purchase we pay, we get taxed. So they're pitching in also. So yeah, I think it's good for there to be people like me becoming US citizens, because I don't believe that countries should just be one type of person. Like, they should all just look the same. And it's a little more complicated, and hopefully one day I can interview someone that actually is very familiar with the laws about why people are coming illegally as opposed to legally. And as far as I know, it's very difficult to qualify if you're Mexican to be able to come into this country and become legally, to come into this country legally and become a US citizen. So yeah, I think I'm a good contribution to the United States of America. The United States started also illegally. Like, it was about conquering, right, land. And in a sense, I feel like borders, yeah, it's kind of a new concept, right? Because people have entered different countries different ways throughout time, and it's about choosing where your loyalty is going to be. And so I think that there should be grace and opportunities for people, even though they entered illegally, for them to qualify to become legal citizens. That's my stance, even as a Republican. I'm just praying to God that whoever becomes the next president will, it'll be who God wants. And yeah, because I'm not really motivated, honestly, to vote for anyone in particular at this time. But that's my experience, and I just want to put it out there to educate and to show you that not all Republicans or conservatives think the same way. We have different experiences, and those impact the way we see the world, and maybe give us a little more empathy or make us more aware of the world. So thank you for listening if you heard this whole video. I'll see you on the next video. Bye. I just finished recording this video, and I was listening to it a little bit, and I realized that I forgot to mention that there are a lot of personal sacrifices for people that decide that they're abandoning their former country, and because they really want to pursue becoming American citizens. And for example, for us, I never got to meet my grandfather. I was a young child when my mother heard the news that he had passed away, and because we didn't have legal documentation, she couldn't fly to Mexico. We couldn't fly to Mexico to the funeral. There are real dramatic consequences that illegal immigrants deal with in pursuit of becoming American citizens. I didn't get to grow up with all of my little cousins. I mean, I would have probably had a blast growing up with all of my... I have a lot of aunts, I have uncles. Never got to meet, like, as a child, I never got to meet my dad's mom. I only saw her once as an adult when we were all able to travel together for the first time to Mexico. With the help of my mom's family that helped us with some of the expenses and being able to stay at their place for some days. There are personal consequences, a price you pay. And to this day, if I go to Mexico, they'll tell me that my Spanish sounds not like theirs. And yeah, I don't speak, if I don't speak the way they do. my whole upbringing is different from theirs. Our culture, our religion, it's just very different. And it's a personal decision that my family made to stay here, and us too. As someone that didn't really have a say about becoming an American citizen, now that I'm an adult, I could make the decision to go back to Mexico, but there are so many benefits for staying here in this country. And I mean, that's why everybody wants to come here, right? Because it is a true blessing, despite all the the negatives. It really is a good place to live overall. And so I'm grateful for my parents having decided to come here and to have endured that, and I'm okay with the way that the challenges we faced growing up, because that goes to show you that illegal immigrants that are here, they want to become a part of this country so bad that they're willing to sacrifice some of the most precious things in this life, which is time with family and proximity with family. And so I just wanted to point that out. I wanted it that just goes to show you that illegal immigrants do love this country, and they really want to become part of this country. And I think we should be fair to them as we discuss them. Obviously, there are exceptions. Not everyone comes with the purest of motivations, and I know, and my video is not trying to make the case that every single one is going to be like my story. But I do think that there's not enough of this side that's being put out there during these conversations about illegal immigration, and that's not reality. You have to, if you're going to talk about the bad stuff, you need to talk about the good stuff too. But that wouldn't help their case politically. So same thing with the other side. If they're going to talk about the good side of illegal immigration, they also need to address the bad side and come up with some decent solutions to address that. We can't just ignore the fact that there's a lot of crime happening because of legal American citizens here. There's a lot of talk about illegal substances that are being sold, that are being deported here, but who's buying? There would be no market, there would be no supply and demand, and I think Americans need to take responsibility for their own actions in that process as well, and not just blame it on illegal immigration and the fact that they blame immigrants for taking away their jobs. You have every advantage as a legal citizen. Why do I see you on the streets asking for money? Take illegal immigrants as an example. Look at how they work to live here in this country, even without so many of those basic needs, that medical insurance and all of that. I think a lot of the problems in this country are not due to illegal immigration, but there are other issues that need to be addressed in this country. I don't want to say it because I don't want my video to get censored or flagged. So, alrighty, I just wanted to add that